In India, 107 minus 50 is equal to 77 and not 57. Not according to math, but this $7 billion startup that's trying to gaslight all of us into thinking that this is a good deal. Welcome to the weird world of Zepto, a 10-minute delivery app wherein if I place an order for 107 rupees, they offer me a promotion, 50 rupees free cash. But when I apply it, for some weird reason, my order total is 77 and not 57. I'm not making this up. What you are seeing is an actual screen recording from my phone while filming this video on the Zepto app. And that's not all. Zepto offers you a membership that gives you free delivery as long as you are a member. But for some weird reason, when you buy that membership, they hike your prices as opposed to someone else who doesn't have the membership.
So I tried getting 1 kg of onions. As you can see, the Zepto Pass user is shown 75 rupees while the regular user is given the price of just 37 rupees.
And that's not all. Even with this membership, you would be charged a delivery fee unless you scroll all the way to the bottom and opt in for free delivery. Users have also reported Zepto shows higher prices to iPhone users as opposed to Android users, even if they order something to the same address from the same warehouse. This is an extremely logical strategy called we confuse our customers with the help of complicated user interface such that they get convinced 107 minus 50 is equal to 77. But wait, a lot of companies do this and that's besides the point. Zepto is a quick commerce company that takes pride in delivering items within 10 minutes. And that's amazing because I wanted to cook some biryani and I didn't have any onions. Imagine getting them delivered to your doorstep within 10 minutes. However, with Zepto, there's a high chance that the onions would get there in 10 minutes, but they would be rotten. And that's not even the worst part. The people getting me my onions, the delivery partners, have reported that the company is frequently late with their payments. And as a result, there is now a Reddit page called Zepto with more than 32,000 members. Currently, there is a lot of dissatisfaction against Zepto, but the timing of this seems very off because the quick commerce industry in India is currently booming. Zepto is currently the second largest 10-minute delivery app in the country, valued at $7 billion. They were able to grow their revenue at a whopping 150% last year. People clearly love their product and use it frequently. So now the question needs to be asked, why is the company taking their customers for granted and resorting to such below the belt tactics? And more importantly, why is there so much of dissatisfaction and hate against Zepto but none against its competitors Blinkit and Swiggy Instamart? As always, we break it down with the help of data and evidence. Let's get started. Currently, India has 3 quick commerce giants which control more than 90% of the entire market. They've been growing pretty fast, but in 2025, Economic Times reported a slowdown only in the case of Zepto. The reason was shocking. Users were switching to the other competitors because of poor customer service. What went wrong? You see, Zepto was in a classic rat race and got some key execution decisions horribly wrong. They were funded by venture capital investors who only chase one metric, revenue growth. And when that happens, a company loses its luxury to think long term. Understand this. Blinkit, which is a competitor of Zepto, is a wholly owned subsidiary of a listed company, Zomato. Now, Zomato is a profitable company that can absorb Blinkit's losses and hence Blinkit can play the long game. Zomato isn't worried about selling Blinkit to another investor at a higher price, so the company has relatively higher operating freedom. But Zepto's operating freedom is a ticking time bomb. Let's say I'm a venture capital investor and I see that Zepto has done revenue of $100,000 last year. I go to the company and give them $1 million in exchange for 10% of their shares. This would bring their company's valuation to $10 million. I tell them the money I've given you is to be used to grow the business as soon as possible. Now, this valuation of $10 million is just imagination. It builds hype amongst other investors. And Zepto takes my $1 million and spends it. They open new stores, they run ads, they market their product aggressively. Because of which their revenue has grown from $100,000 to $1 million, 10 times. So now another investor comes in and offers them $10 million in exchange for 10% of their company, which brings the company's valuation to $100 million. This way, my original investment of 10% in Zepto goes 10 times simply because the valuation of the company has jumped 10x. All of these numbers are purely imagination. They are based on future expectations on how well the company would perform. This creates a symbiotic relationship between the management and the investors. The management needs the investors' money to keep growing the business, and the investors need the business to grow so that they can make more money. As a result, the company keeps burning cash and its valuation keeps inflating. Now, there's nothing wrong with this as long as the business model is sustainable and there's revenue growth. The problem starts when the revenue growth slows down, which is what happened in the case of Zepto. When the investors see revenue growth slowed down, they start putting pressure on the management and threaten to withdraw funding if revenue doesn't go back up. In the process, the management loses its freedom to operate independently. As a result, the company starts doing anything to increase its revenue, even questionable mathematics. By 2025, investor pressure on Zepto was at its peak because the company's financial condition was crippled. Let's see why. To ensure rapid growth, they took two decisions, both of which ended in a disaster. First one, they decided to scale horizontally instead of vertically. Zepto was mainly present in the tier 1 cities of India, and in 2023 they raised nearly $1 billion to double their total stores from 350 to 700. But this expansion was horizontal in nature, meaning instead of doubling down on the cities that they were already present in, they decided to open stores left, right and center in the smaller tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India. Before building a flawless product and fully understanding the market that they were building for, they forayed into newer markets with different dynamics. In simple words, quick commerce's largest market is a city like Mumbai. It's fast-paced, people don't have the time, and people have higher incomes to pay a premium for quick delivery. In smaller cities, however, people weren't okay paying this premium. Grocery store culture couldn't be killed here. They were okay ordering stuff on Amazon if it wasn't available at their grocery store and waiting for 2 days. Additionally, the smallest cities of the lot didn't even have the incomes to pay for this service, so the company stretched too thin by expanding in places that weren't giving a return on investment. Their competitors, on the other hand, did the exact same thing, however. They also spent a lot of money, they also opened a lot of stores, but they expanded vertically as opposed to horizontally. Look at the data. In 2024, Blinkit had 639 total stores and they planned on going to 2000 by the end of 2026. However, most of these new stores would be in the top 10 cities where they do the most business. Cities which are fast-paced, busy, high income in nature. If you live in a city like Mumbai and work 12 hours a day, you don't think twice before paying 30 rupees for delivery. Why? Because the 10 minutes that you would save cost a lot more, but it's not the same in a smaller city where life is slow. And it's not like Zepto's competitors didn't go to the smaller cities. They did, but very selectively and armed with the complete knowledge of what it takes to run this business profitably in a larger city. This allowed them to make the necessary adjustments and make sure that their business in the smaller cities was also profitable. The second mistake that Zepto made was called Zepto Cafe. This was a business wherein they delivered food in 10 minutes. Tea, coffee, pizza, sandwiches, things that could be easily heated and delivered as soon as possible for a busy lifestyle. Now, the problem was this was also an extremely capital intensive business that they started when their existing quick commerce business was struggling. Renting a kitchen, hiring staff, training them, ensuring food and safety standards in such a short span of time at such a low price point was very difficult and it burnt a lot of their cash. Moreover, they made the same mistake of expanding horizontally into smaller cities. The cities that didn't care about 10-minute delivery of groceries weren't going to care about 10-minute delivery of food. This led to 4.4% of all their cafe operations shutting down in 2025 because their total daily orders dropped nearly 50%. The investor pressure was so bad that they didn't have the luxury to take it slow, so they started cutting corners, and that in the food business looks somewhat like this. Zepto Cafe kitchens lost their food license because they were selling expired inventory. Once again, their competitors took advantage of this. They expanded vertically and slowly. They focused on audits and hygiene checks to build customer trust. And this was only part of the problem. This cost cutting spilled over to their quick commerce business as well. It was almost as if the cash drain on both their businesses was hurting each other. Thousands of customers reported instances of getting the wrong stuff delivered, not getting their refunds, getting food with fungus on them. And while all of this was going on, they had to deal with a customer support that didn't even have a phone number. Zepto's official customer support policy states this, leaving Zepto in a place where they had no choice but to resort to those below the belt dark patterns that we saw in the start of the video. All of this works in the short term, but in the long run, it erodes customer trust. Think about it. Why would anyone order from such a platform after discovering these cost-cutting measures and dark patterns? Moreover, with small ticket items like packaged milk or a bag of chips, you wouldn't think twice. But what about the expensive stuff? For example, Zepto's competitor Blinkit also sells PS5s and iPhones that people actually buy because of the high trust factor. In fact, I put up a poll asking people if they had the money and wanted to buy a PS5 right now from a quick commerce app, which one would they choose? And 82% of them voted against Zepto. Now, the way ahead for Zepto is pretty straightforward. There are a couple of solutions. The first one is to prioritize. This can happen by focusing on tier 1 cities, perfecting the product before moving into smaller cities which are more challenging to operate in. Second is to put customers' trust over your investors' greed. If you want people to buy more, might as well make them trust you. Get rid of those dark patterns, bring in more transparency in your pricing. People would happily part with their money if they don't feel cheated. The third is to properly position themselves as an anything app the way Blinkit did, which caters to both low margin as well as premium segments. Zepto is largely perceived as a grocery app which isn't able to sell premium products even if they stock them. If someday Zepto wants to sell PS5s and iPhones, they need to start by making sure that the bread they deliver doesn't have mold on it. Zepto's investors want an IPO, but its customers want food that isn't rotten. And I don't think one can happen without the other. If you made it this far, I'd love to know what you think about this. How can Zepto get its act together? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you learned something new from this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that's what keeps us insanely motivated.